Rachel Zegler on paper has one of the most promising careers of any actress around, but she seems to be ruining it with her mouth, and now she's come out regretting her comments about Donald Trump supporters. Rachel Zegler has one of the more ethnically diverse backgrounds of people in Hollywood, where her father's of German and Polish descent, her mother's of Colombian descent. She was actually named Rachel after Rachel Green from Friends. The way she was able to break into the world of acting was due to theater in high school, where she played Belle in the Beauty and the Beast play, Ariel in the Little Mermaid play, and also Fiona in the Shrek play. First time she found success with a bigger audience was doing a cover of the song Shallow in 2018, where it got 12 million views on Twitter and over 3 million views on YouTube. That ultimately brought her to the attention of Steven Spielberg, where because she was able to have some success on social media and also theater, she was able to beat out 30,000 other actresses who applied to be Maria in West Side Story. The reason West Side Story was one of the most coveted roles in Hollywood was because the 1961 movie was a huge hit, making $44 million on a budget of $6.7 million and won 10 out of the 11 Oscars it was nominated for. One complaint against the original West Side Story came from the Puerto Rican community, where they didn't like the idea of the character Maria, who is Puerto Rican in the actual play, being played by Natalie Wood, who's from Russian descent. Many people in the Puerto Rican community were upset with Rachel Zegler's casting for the same reason, saying they just didn't understand the difference between a Colombian actress and a Puerto Rican one, and because of that they were angry. Because of that, as well as about 1,000 other factors, West Side Story was a huge failure, where it made only $76 million on a budget of $100 million and needed $185 million to break even, so it lost over $100 million. From that point on, Rachel Zegler has delivered flop after flop, where she did the movie Shazam 2, which only made $134 million on a budget of $125 million, meaning it lost about $75 million. After that, she did the Hunger Games prequel, A Song of Ice and Fire, which wasn't the success the studio wanted, where even though it was profitable, making $349 million on a budget of $100 million, they projected to break $500 million. That's because the studio was hoping for a bigger hit like the first one, which came out in 2012, where on a budget of $78 million, it made $695 million at the box office. Now things have hit a new low for Rachel Zegler, where the trailer for the new Snow White movie came out, which got 1.2 million dislikes on YouTube, but only 68,000 likes, making it the worst performance for a trailer ever. Rachel Zegler's casting as Snow White was pretty controversial, because even though she is half white and actually the same ancestry as Snow White because of her father's ancestry, because she's Colombian, a lot of people had a problem with it. People definitely seem to have a problem with racial recast, especially when it comes to Disney movies, where Halle Bailey also had 1 million dislikes on her first trailer for The Little Mermaid. There was actually a really racist reaction to that, where there was over 10 million views on Twitter for somebody who used deepfake technology to turn Halle Bailey white and then made the pledge they were actually going to make the entire movie with her being white, which never ended up happening. But still, be it from people who were upset over hiring a black actress, fatigue for reboots, or just not making a good movie, The Little Mermaid was a failure, just making $570 million on a budget of $240 million, meaning it lost $100 million. But despite the movie's failure, many people in the public actually still liked Halle Bailey, viewing her as a good person, but on the other hand, Rachel Zegler, due to a lot of the comments she's made, has built a huge audience of hate. One example being Rachel Zegler being busted a lie, where she said she was a huge fan of the Snow White movie as a kid, and also every time she goes to Disney, people ask to take pictures with her outside the Snow White ride. That was a massive load of BS, where in an interview 4 months earlier, she said she only saw the movie once when she was 8 years old, only went on the ride one time when she was 9 years old, and wasn't a huge fan of the franchise. Then she also called out the Snow White movie from 1937, which was Disney's first big hit in theaters, because she said the movie was sexist, having a prince save the princess. And Rachel Zegler took some really big shots at her Snow White co-star Andrew Burnham, saying that his character wouldn't be a prince, wouldn't save her, would just be named Eric, and he might get cut out in post-production. Because this David Hann, who's the son of the director to the original Snow White, called out Rachel Zegler, saying that her comments would make Walt Disney as well as his father roll in their graves and she doesn't respect their work. Now Rachel Zegler's trying to build a personality outside of Snow White, getting into activism, where during the actor strike she said she wouldn't work unless she was getting royalties for what her movies made during streaming. Making the comment that if she's going to wear a dress for 7 hours a day doing filming, she's going to get royalties from that for the rest of her life. That led her to being called out by a lot of people, such as plumbers, electricians, and carpenters, saying they don't get royalties on her work, and they just called her very entitled for her comments. Rachel Zegler also decided to get political again when it comes to Israel versus Palestine, directly making a stance against her co-star in Snow White as well as Shazam Gal Gadot. The reason is Gal Gadot is an Israeli citizen and was part of the Israeli army before becoming an actress, because they do have a draft there and she was required to join when she turned 18. Rachel Zegler has decided to stay pretty silent on content that was related to Israel and Palestine until Gal Gadot showed support for Israel, so one day later she came out against Gal Gadot showing support for Palestine. Now Rachel Zegler's found herself in a new level of hate, where she decided to go against Donald Trump, but not just Donald Trump himself, his supporters, saying she hopes they have horrible lives. To her 2.3 million followers on social media, she posted this right here, saying she wishes a level of pain to all the Trump supporters, saying she's deeply hurt over this country's decision. And that got to her new level of hate, where many big-time Trump supporters like Charlie Kirk and others called to boycott the Snow White movie because of her. Now there are also petitions from people who want AMC and other big theaters to play Ben Shapiro's Snow White movie that he's also going to be doing next year, with Brett Cooper playing Snow White. Rachel Zegler's comments have definitely made Disney afraid, because their Snow White movie cost $214 million to make, is going to cost $100 million to market, so it needs to make over $500 million to break even. Disney has been having a really solid year so far, with the 2 highest grossing movies in the world, with Inside Out 2 at $1.7 billion and Deadpool 3 at $1.3 billion, and more to come. Which is a lot better than 2023, where The Marvels, Wish, Indiana Jones, Ant-Man 3, and many more cost Disney $1 billion at the box office. But Rachel Zegler decided to make an apology to Trump supporters, saying she admits she went way too far bashing them and wouldn't do that again going forward. Still, many people, including myself, think this was just Disney forcing her to say some sort of apology to try and salvage Snow White, and she actually meant what she said. But with that, I'm Charles Peralta. Please subscribe to learn something.